When friends go out mountain biking, they have no idea they're about to find themselves at the top of Mount Mystery. And then we take a look at the story of a young man who's just trying to get a good night's sleep. Like so many of us, all we want to do is for our head to hit the pillow and catch some Z's. But this man's slumber is interrupted by a dark voice telling him horrible things that leaves him to this day wondering, is there any truth when the demon whispers in your ear? Today on Dead Rabbit Radio.
Actually, I'm a lot freaked out.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Dead Rabbit Radio. I'm your host, Jason Gardner. I'm having a great day. Hope you guys are having a great day too. Hope you guys have some awesome plans for the weekend. I don't think there's any movies that I want to see. That's normally what I do on the weekend. Oh yeah, and it's a Labor Day weekend's coming up too, right? So it doesn't mean an extra movie's going to come out for me to see, but maybe I'll find something to watch. But someone who doesn't spend their free time around whether or not there's movies to watch, someone who has a very fulfilling life full of hobbies, walking into Dead Rabbit Radio Command right now. Everyone get on your feet and give it up for Cat Girl. Woohoo, yeah, wee, ha, yeah. Clap for the cat. Clap for the cat. Cat Girl was a donator. Cat Girl made a donation during our... I'm gonna be honest, bro. I found this list on the ground. I've been on vacation for a month. I'm picking stuff up. I found this list on the ground that has a bunch of scratched out names, but some of them aren't. And I'm like, did I give this person a shout out before? Did I not? I don't even remember what this was for. What was the last live stream we did? Like, Christmas? Christmas or something like that? We might have done one. Oh, I think it was the annual... like the 6th annual live stream special. So, Cat Girl, you're going to be our captain, our pilot this episode. Thank you so much for your generous support. If you guys can't support the show financially, I totally understand. You're like, Jason, even if I do, you're probably going to forget. I'll be lucky if I get my shout out. That's fine too if you can't support the show financially. Just help spread the word about Dead Rabbit Radio. That helps out so much. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell everyone you know. Dead Rabbit Radio is your favorite paranormal show. Also, I recently sent out a huge batch of stickers. I did not know I was so far behind on that. Again, I had a list. This stuff wasn't checked off. I gotta stay on top of this. Long introduction, long episode. We gotta get stuff started right away. Cat Girl, let's go ahead and start this bad boy off with tossing you a big tank of propane to hook up to the bunny balloon. Is this new? We hook up this propane tank. Jason, that's not how hot air balloons work. You don't get a propane tank from Walmart. Hook it up. It's probably why you don't own a hot air balloon. Everyone climb on board the bunny balloon. It's this giant hot air balloon as Cat Girl sails us up and away, all the way out of Dead Rabbit Radio Command. We're headed out to West Virginia. Light that hot air up. Woo wee. We sail away in the hot air balloon. They don't make sounds. What am I supposed to do? What does a hot air balloon sound like? Wee! People in this wigger basket. We're headed all the way out to West Virginia. Specifically, we're going to be in Snowshoe, West Virginia. Apparently, it's at the southern part of the state. The year is 2018. And this is around 9-10 in the morning. The least spookiest time of all. Oh, before we get started with the story too, please let me know if the volume issues have been corrected, because it's really hard for me to tell them this end, and I know we've had some issues with as your ears are bleeding. You're like, yes, it's so loud. You're stunned, locked in place. You can't shut it off. Let me know if I got the volume thing fixed. Anyways, we're headed out to Snowshoe, West Virginia. We're about to meet a group of guys. We're going to meet Blake. These aren't the real names, but Blake is going to be the guy who is telling us this story. He's the one who posted it online anonymously. And then two of his friends, we'll call them Matt and Todd. And they're kind of hanging out one day and they go, dude, you know what would be dope? Mountain biking. They all say it at the same time. They're like, oh yeah, dude, that'd be... Does anyone own a mountain bike? Do we have one? They're like, I don't know. They went and they bought some mountain bikes. They decide to go mountain biking. And they figured that would be really, really fun to race along super narrow trails down steep embankments in the middle of nowhere. It's like humans have a death wish. But people love it. People love mountain biking. It's not my cup of tea. I don't even like biking. I don't even like riding a bike down a flat path in the sidewalk or something like that. Get out of the way, kids. I'm riding a bike. Get out of the way, civilians. I'm riding a bike. These guys like to go mountain biking, but they actually end up, because this is before GPS, Blake explains, back in 2008. He said that we wanted to go to this particular mountain in southern West Virginia, but all we had was a map and some directions someone gave us. They're like, oh, yes, if you want the best mountain biking experience, head up to these mountains, you'll find the path. And so they were given kind of a set of directions, a map, but that wasn't enough. That wasn't enough for them to actually find. They couldn't even find where they were going mountain biking. You were like, oh, at the intro, you were like, a paranormal mountain biking mystery. Oh, this is awesome. I love mountain biking. They don't even get to the mountain biking in this story. The bikes remain stuck to the roof of the car because they get lost. They don't even get to the mountain biking place. They get so lost, they don't have any idea of where they're at. It's not like they can just turn around and return home. They don't know how to get back to where they came from. They're that lost. Driving down the road, they end up seeing this tiny town off to the side, and they go, oh, let's pull over there. Let's pull over there. We have no idea where we're at. Let's get some directions. Okay. So they pull off the main road and drive into this town, small town. They're driving down the strip. The town's empty. Blake and Matt and Todd are kind of looking at each other and they're like, what? It's not something you would pick up on immediately, right? If you started driving around town and no one was there, you wouldn't notice it the second you pulled into town. But as you pass street after street, driving down these blocks, you would start to realize there's no one else around. And there's not a single person to be seen walking around, looking in shop windows. They don't see anyone as they're driving down the road. They don't see any other cars on the road. So they end up parking their truck and start walking around. Now it's almost a new mystery. They are also lost, right? They have no idea of how to get home. They do need to find somebody, but also it's a bit of a mystery. How is there nobody in this town? And Blake said, listen, here's the thing. It was like 9, 10 in the morning. It was early enough that people would be out and about. This is midday or mid-morning. Something should be going on. They said we walked by the post office, looked in the window, completely empty. Stopped by a local bar, and while the door was locked, they could hear music playing from within. Don't tell my heart, my achy, breaky heart, I just don't think it understand. Blake and Todd and Matt are like, what in the world's going on? They keep walking through town. Blake said after about 25 minutes of walking, they come across an old man. And he stated that it seemed like the old man came out of nowhere. It definitely would be startling after 25 minutes of not seeing anyone. And the very first question these three men asked the old man, they said, where the hell is everyone? At this point, they're less worried about finding their way back home and more just figuring out what's actually going on here. And the old man said, well, I guess folks around here don't get up much till around noon. Weird, but possible. Right? It could be that small of a town that everyone just wakes up at the same time and starts moving about, but These three guys, they drove through town, they've been walking around, there's no sign of anybody until this old man appeared. So they do ask him, they go, how do we get to Snowshoe? That's where they're headed towards. And the old man points towards the road that they came in on. And he said, listen, you go, get on that road, go for about 10 miles, you make a right, and you'll hit the interstate. And then you can take the interstate straight to Snowshoe. So Blake, Matt, and Todd, they're like, okay, at least, we've gotten the directions. I guess we got an answer to the mystery. No one really wakes up until around noon. Weird. But now the second part of the problem, we know how to at least get to the mountain biking place. He should have said, do you have directions for our home? He's like, what? I don't know where you live. They felt very uneasy about it. Something still was wrong. But the three young men got back in the truck, drove back to the road they came in on, and began going down the road, continuing their journey to Snowshoe. Until about 5 miles out of town, they see a woman standing in the middle of the road. She's wearing Blake described it as a state road uniform. So I'm assuming that's some sort of like construction / safety uniform. It's something that he would recognize in West Virginia as a uniform of a worker, but I'm assuming it's something that in any state or really in a country you would kind of recognize as someone who's wearing like a reflective vest because they're standing in the middle of the road and they don't want to get ran over. And this woman is holding one of those signs that says slow. She's like a road worker person. And as the truck gets closer to her, she turns it from slow to stop. We've all seen this. I think anyone who's ever driven a car or ridden a car has seen this. There's construction happening also farther down the road, and that person has a sign they're going to let traffic in from that end because they've cut it down to one road, and it's all a way to prevent accidents while doing major road work. And then after a period of time, your sign is turned to slow, and then you can slowly go to the other side. Oh, great. But whatever, what are they going to do? It's a construction zone. They just can't be like, no, we got to go mountain biking. We're going to race through this construction zone. Blake and them, they pull the truck to a stop. And the woman says, hey, yeah, sorry, there's some road construction up ahead. We need you guys to stop for a moment. And they're like, oh, yeah, no, we totally understand. We get how it goes. Hey, what's up with that town we just passed? Blake says. He goes, we just came out of this town maybe 5 miles back. It was really weird. There's no one walking around, and it's like it was just an odd place. You know anything about that? And Matt and Todd are kind of, agreeing with them. And the woman says, yeah, actually that is a really weird town. She laughs when she hears them say this, and she goes, yeah, it's a really weird place. And they start kind of BSing. Blake and the boys start talking to this woman about just random stuff. She's holding the sign. Her job is one of the most boring jobs in the world. That's why they're pretty well paid, because it just must eat at your brain. She's holding the sign. These guys, this is the first non-appearing out of nowhere human they've seen in a while. They're kind of BSing with her, and Blake goes, we sat there for probably 45 minutes minimum talking to this woman. Very friendly, the vibe was right, we're just all having a good time. He goes, for 45 minutes at a minimum, possibly up to an hour. He goes, we were all kind of just lost in the conversation with her. And it was a lot of random stuff, but sometimes she would ask questions. And again, these are questions that wouldn't raise your alarms if you just met someone new and you're talking to them. She would ask, where are you guys from? And where are you guys headed? Very casual questions. And they responded. They didn't feel like there was any need to be deceptive. These are casual things that people talk about. Well, eventually, though, after about 45 minutes to an hour, the woman says, well, I guess it's clear now, and y'all can go ahead. And she turns the sign from stop to slow. Blake and the boys are now driving the truck down this road. And they're driving. And they're driving. And they start to realize something. They do not see anywhere any signs of a construction. Any signs of a construction team. Any signs of construction equipment. No signs of a roadway repair squad. Nothing. No equipment, no vehicles, no workers. Just this car driving down this road. They drove for 30 miles after the point where the woman stopped them. And in that time, they saw nothing. In fact, they start to realize that the entire time they were sitting there talking to that woman with that sign, not a single car came from the opposite direction. So it's not like traffic was being stopped here, so cars from the other end of this non-existent construction roadway repair work could come by. No, he goes, we sat there and not a single car came from the other direction. In fact, Blake says we started talking about this because now, I mean, come on, man, this is about as weird as it can be. The town was already bad enough. The woman stood there and she held that sign that said stop all that time, and then almost arbitrarily says, well, you guys can go now. But they realized that the walkie-talkie she had, she never spoke into it. And no one ever talked to her. So why then? Why now was it okay to drive? Why was it okay to go down this road? There's no construction. There's no roadway repair team. No oncoming traffic. Just a woman in the middle of the road holding up a stop sign. This was posted online by someone going by the name Rekonsk. They posted this online on this Reddit where people are asking about eerie towns or like bizarre times you were kind of in the middle of nowhere and something weird happened. And of course, you know, this subreddit gets flooded with all of these stories like this. And I actually should say, no, these are the standout stories like this. A lot of them are just kind of lame, right? Some guy's like, I'm trapped in the nth dimension. I was like, boring. You know, I have a pretty high threshold for what I find entertaining because I read this stuff all the time, but a lot of it was just kind of boring. The previous one we did was about people who were trapped in a town where everyone drank milk. And I thought that was interesting. I thought this one was interesting. And it's funny enough because recently we did an episode about a conspiracy theory where a guy believes, and this could 100% be true, that these Ask Reddit threads and these posts, similar posts on the X board, or you see them all over the internet, are actually a government information scraping operation. Because the military or the government or private corporations who have their hands in some pretty bizarre waters want to know this information. So they would, I'll put all these episodes in the show notes. If you're like, milk episodes, sign me up. I'll put these episodes in the show notes, but it's this idea that the government would want to track all of this stuff. Because we know they investigate UFOs. We 100% know that. Whether or not UFOs exist, they investigate them. So why aren't they investigating ghosts and other parts of the paranormal? The short answer is they are. So yeah, you know, that always is in the back of my head now since I covered that one conspiracy theory. This could have been set up by some sort of government operative and they go, let's start making a map of weird experiences. What's interesting too, this one, there was someone who responded to it and they said that the town of Greenbank. They said Greenbank, which is 18 miles out of Snowshoe, West Virginia, Greenbank actually has a massive radio telescope research facility. And it is a facility that the military, according to this poster, I don't know if this is actually true, but I mean, we talk about conspiracy theories all the time. Towns may be full of milk. Apparently in Greenbank, there is a massive radio telescope research facility that the military currently uses for research. And also this location is used to search for signs of extraterrestrial civilizations. It's interesting because the story doesn't, like, I don't know where to classify it at. It's just kind of a weird event that happens. There's not any, as far as we know, sense of time loss, so it's not like an alien abduction. I mean, they said they talked to her for 45 minutes, but they remember that. It's not like they left that small town and the next thing they knew, it was 2 hours later and they were 50 miles down the road and they don't know where they got there. That's more common with an alien experience. What I think is interesting is, I think the story happened before it started. Because remember, Blake says we were driving through the area, all we had was a map and some directions. We didn't have GPS like we do nowadays, so we got lost. I don't think that's why they got lost. I think this phenomenon caused them to become lost. They could have had a GPS and they still would have ended up in this location somehow. But as to what the experience is, to what is going on here, I mean, it could be alien, could be alternate reality. The idea, you know what's interesting that makes me, it's the fact that the two people they do encounter, well, one of them tries to get them out of there, shows them the way out, and then the other one kind of traps them there for quite a while. But then you go, well, maybe the old man was actually sending them towards the woman with the stop sign. But again, like, what was the purpose of all of it? And really, if that's what you're looking for, I mean, I do it too. I try to find the purpose sometimes. That's probably one of the hardest questions to answer with the paranormal, is why? And we already have a hard enough time with the how. The who can be a little iffy. So yeah, interesting story about a trio of friends who just wanted to enjoy mountain biking and left with a vague, uneasy feeling. That's it. No alien implants. No trapped in an alternate dimension for the rest of time. No, they were eventually able to find their way home. But not knowing what happened, because something definitely happened to these three young men, but not knowing even what it was, can sometimes be the most terrifying part. If you know it's a ghost, you know how to prevent it from happening again. If you believe it's an alien abduction, those are a little bit harder to avoid in the future, honestly, but you know the experts to call, you know who to talk to. But a situation like this, you even wonder, for Blake, Matt, and Todd, they must be thinking, was that even paranormal? Like, what even was that? And if you don't know what it was, you may not be able to prevent it in the future. And you go, Jason, all of it was a minor inconvenience. They can't prevent it in the future. But who knows? Maybe next time they'll be trapped in that town. Who knows? Probably not. Now I'm going to turn it into a spooky story. But my point is that if you don't know what it is, you can't prevent it. And though they were able to make their way back home, is it possible other people traveling along this route never made it? Went missing. I guess I could look up missing people reports in the area. I never thought of that before. That'd be really interesting. I'll see if I can dig into some of that stuff over the weekend. Since I don't have a movie to watch, I'll just do my job. And you know what's interesting is that you West Virginianites, is that what you guys are called? West Virginianites, you can explore this. You can explore this time bending area with two people. If you know the Snowshoe area and you know where they're talking, yeah, hop in the car this weekend, go for a road trip, and come back alive and tell us about it. That'd be cool, right? I'm just going to read a couple missing person reports online as I'm doing that. Yours pops up. I was like, what? Oh, this is interesting. Someone just went missing. On the very weekend, I told someone to investigate it. That just must be a coincidence. Cat Girl, let's go ahead and toss you the keys to the world famous Carpenter Copter. We are leaving behind West Virginia. Why don't you fly us all the way out to a house in anywhere USA? Cat Girl is flying us out to this house. So we're about to meet this young man. We didn't give his real name. We're going to call him Lewis. Lewis has a habit. It's not a bad habit. Well, your doctor may disagree, but I don't. Lewis likes nicotine patches. Nicotine patches get a little safe nicotine delivery. A nootropic. Really, we've actually done a couple episodes on nicotine. It's not the fact that I'm a huge fan of nicotine and I struggle. I don't say I am using it again, but I'm fine with it. I'm not trying to quit. I am getting my blood pressure. I'm getting a full physical done next week. I have to have my blood pressure and my cholesterol checked. So, but I use the nicotine replacement stuff, right? I use like the lozenges and the gum and the patches. Not all at the same time. But it's a great way to get nicotine. If you want nicotine, it takes away a lot of the bad health things that like tobacco does. You take the nicotine replacement, you do get those things where all your blood vessels tighten. I can feel it. You're like, Jason, you can't feel your blood. No, sometimes I feel. That's a heart attack. You're having a stroke. I don't take as much nicotine lozenges as I used to, but I used to take like the 4 milligram ones. And I'd take 2. I would take 2 at once, so I was getting 8 milligrams. And I would go, oh, I could feel my body. I could feel like the energy, the nicotine coming from my gums and flowing into my capillaries and all of my veins and stuff. I'm all ripping open a cop car. You're like, Jason, are you sure you weren't eating PCP? I'm like, oh, I'm invincible. Please shoot me. Watch the bullets bounce off. Anyways, I'm not going to say I recommend nicotine, but if you're currently on smoking stuff, if you're currently smoking, switch to the nicotine replacement stuff. It is healthier. Well, Lewis likes a little bit of the nicotine as well. He uses the nicotine patches. Those actually really make my body start to convulse and the left side of my face droop. It's weird. Slurred speech and all, but Lewis likes the nicotine patches. Those are too powerful for me. He also likes to sleep with them. Because any nicotine fiend will tell you, nicotine creates vivid dreams. Vivid dreams. This is basically, I'm being sponsored by the nicotine companies, all of them right now. Vivid dreams. And so he said, listen, I love to sleep with a nicotine patch on because I have the craziest dreams. So, Lewis continues, that may be what is the cause of this story. But, for one detail, Lewis said that he does sleep with his bathroom light on. It's kind of recessed lighting, so it's not like glaring in his face, but he has like a bathroom attached to the bedroom that he shares with his wife, and he says, you know, if I have to wake up in the middle of the night and go to the bathroom, I'll know where it's at. I can look. I'm looking around in the darkness. I wake up from this super vivid dream. I was swimming in Niagara Falls. I wake up and I have to pee. But instead of kind of fumbling around in the darkness, I see a glimmer of light off in the distance. My bathroom. I left my bathroom light on, and he can make his way over there. Go to the bathroom. On this particular night, that's kind of the setup, right? You got your notes? Have you drawn your map of his bedroom? On this particular night, Lewis says that he has this dream. In this dream, which was very vivid and felt real, like many dreams, but especially dreams on nicotine, he said, on this night, I was on the top bunk of a bunk bed. In my dream, I was on the top bunk of a bunk bed. My wife is laying next to me. She's dead asleep. I'm awake in the dream, I'm just lying there. And that's when I begin to hear a susurration. A hissing susurration. I had to look that word up. I had never seen that word before. It means a murmuring. So a hissing murmuring coming from the bottom bunk. And as this voice was speaking, Lewis begins to feel the deepest despair he has ever experienced in his life. He's laying there on the top bunk and he just becomes overwhelmed by emotional darkness. A despair so infinite and all-encompassing. It's like it's decaying the very nature of his soul. It's rotting it right out of his body, just like that level. He said what the voice was saying was that Christianity is a lie. I know a bunch of atheists listen to this podcast. They're like, well, what? That's not paranormal, Jason. I can send you a couple books on this subject. But fine, that's fair. If you're agnostic or atheist, or even if you're of a alternate religion, not Christian, you're like, you go back to sleep. You're like, well, okay, voice from the bottom bunk. Tell me something I don't know. You go back to sleep. Lewis is a Christian. So to him, this struck him at his core. Now, I'm Christian. Christians do often hear that their religion is not real. And, whatever. Like, I'm not gonna go, agree to disagree. Christians hear this all the time. Everyone of every faith hears this all the time. Atheists, they hear this all the time. Oh, what? You don't believe? Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. You get on with your day. But in this dream, in this very vivid dream, it's really, really getting to Lewis. This voice, this unseen voice, continues and says, Christianity, it's a big lie. It's not real at all. In fact, all of the things you think Christianity can protect you against, it's useless. It's useless. It serves no purpose. It's not real, and it can't protect you. In fact, Lewis, because it's hissing, remember? In fact, Lewis, you know what I'm going to do right now? I'm going to kill you. And then you'll go to hell. That place you've worried so much about? Yep, that place is real. The Christianity part's fake. But hell's real, Lewis. It's real. And I'm going to kill you. And you're going to die. And you're going to go there. You will spend eternity in hell unless Lewis is laying there. He's completely frozen in place. Can't speak, can't move. And the hissing voice from the bottom bunk tells Lewis, if you accept my domination over you, if you accept me having all power over your soul, you will not spend eternity in hell. In fact, for the first time in your life, Lewis, you will be free. Accept my dominion, and only then will your soul be safe. Lewis finally gets the power to speak. Finally is able to say what he's been wanting to say. He says, I don't believe you, voice. I don't believe anything you're saying. I reject you. Lewis wrote in his account here, his witness account, he goes, after I told this voice I didn't believe anything he was saying and I rejected his offer, quote, it laughed. The laugh sounded like dried skin of a decomposed body cracking apart. Unquote. I mean, that's a pretty descriptive way of a voice to sound. You're like, It definitely did not take Lewis's resistance to really mean anything. His voice did not care what Lewis had to say. Lewis then does shout out, in the name of Jesus Christ, leave me alone. And then he wakes up. Lewis wakes up. He's laying there in bed next to his wife. He's awake. He's in his real bedroom, in his real bed, not a bunk bed. He's sitting there and he sees the recessed lighting of the bathroom glowing in the darkness. But he's laying there in bed and he said the bathroom light is normally, always has been, a cool white color. But this time Lewis is looking through the dark bedroom into the bathroom, and the lighting emanating from within is a glowing orange color. Lewis is frozen in place. He is wide awake and he's just laying there now, looking at this light. He's terrified. He's puzzled. He does not know how that's possible. But he does know one thing for sure. He's awake. Lewis looks at that light and he can't figure out why it's different now. He goes, I was awake. I wasn't dreaming. I know I was awake. And he's laying there next to his wife looking at this glowing orange light. And then he falls back asleep. Lewis posted this online on the X board. Let me read to you how he finished it up. He said, quote, never have I ever had anything else creepy like that happen to me. The dream was bad. Felt a despair so acute I can't even begin to describe it. But the light glowing reddish orange was what made this experience stick. I was wide awake. That part I can't explain away as a bad dream. Unquote. Now, this is a story, again, I usually don't cover dreams on this podcast, which I've actually gotten a lot of emails from you guys going, why not? Dreams are actually really interesting. Yeah, they are. I've talked about this multiple episodes. I'm not going to repeat it, but in short, I go, that's the most interesting thing when it's happening to you in that dream. And then when you wake up, to you, it's pretty fascinating. But as far as like really getting into dreams in the world of the paranormal, we know anything can happen in dreams. Therefore, nothing's truly paranormal because there's no normal. That's just kind of my view on it. But sometimes dreams do cross over and they become a prophetic dream, showing something that's going to happen in the real waking world. Now that's 100%, paranormal, dead rabbit radio worthy. The idea of if you can control your dreams, as in lucid dreaming, you can control your reality. That's really a big thing that's coming out in the law of attraction community. A lot of people making their dream journals while they're awake and thinking about the things that they want while they're awake. And then they go, how come the law of attraction doesn't work? And then the people who put it into action in the subconscious, which is very difficult to do, they're the ones who attract what they want in the world. I'll tell you this, I know once I mentioned the law of attraction, a bunch of people are like, oh, he's going to talk about this for 30 minutes. I do want to say this. I always find this very interesting. If you look at a lot of the stories of celebrities who seemingly pop out of nowhere, Eminem, for example, is a good example of this. But a lot of them did this. Eminem, his entire ceiling of his room, of his bedroom, when he was growing up, when he was a young man, young teenager, all of that, was covers of the Source magazine, a hip-hop magazine. So he would write raps during the day, and he'd be hanging out with his friends, and they'd be doing, music and everything like that, and just nothing was taken off for him. But in those moments before he fell asleep, the 20, 30 minutes before he's fallen asleep, he's looking up at all of those magazine covers, and he's filling his subconscious with these visions of him, meeting these people, of talking about rap with these legends, of making his own music, of being on stage, of being on one of these magazine covers. He stares up at that ceiling every day for years. And now he is on the magazine covers. Now legends of hip-hop talk about him. I do think that is a component of that. Now, of course, okay, maybe you had a Cindy Crawford poster on your ceiling when you were a teenager, but, so it's not 100% right. You're like, all right, man, my stalking business is really going to take off. You have all these pictures, these Polaroids you've been taking around town. Don't use it for evil, but my point is that sleep and dreaming can be a very interesting component of the paranormal, but in and of itself, it's not super fascinating. So why am I telling this story? The fact that the light changes, and he doesn't say that it's forever. There's two questions that happen here. One, the fact that the light changed means that there was some sort of physical change in the world, in Lewis's world, and by an extent, because we're reading this online, our world as well. Unless the internet is hooked up to alternate realities, which honestly isn't that far-fetched of a theory. People talk about the dead internet theory, and that's saying the internet is mostly bots, which is true. But then you also got to wonder, I'm reading this post on the X board, how do I know me and Lewis even exist in the same reality? I would assume we do, because I'm reading it and he's writing it and I'm able to read it. But with the nature of the internet and AI and the multiverse, he could actually be in a separate reality. But that's even getting more weird than I planned on getting with this episode. The fact that the lighting changed, let's say it only changed for one night, because he did not tell us that from then on out it was permanently orange. If it changed for that one night, you would think that the reddish light in that room was whatever entity was whispering into his dreams. That would be my takeaway. That it wasn't necessarily that the light, if it only happened that night, if the next day the lighting was white again, a cool white, then I would go with that orange-reddish glow was actually the entity in that room. Maybe leaving because it had lost. It was trying to get him to give dominion, this demon, we would assume, right? This dark entity was trying to convince Lewis to turn his back on the religion he cherished so much and to worship this hissing voice that he hears in his dreams. That orange-reddish glow could have been that entity giving off that type of light. And even that opens up a whole other question, is, are we responsible for what we do in our dreams? Like, had he said yes, would that have directly affected his soul? I would guess not. But I don't know the answer to that question. Because it is you making those decisions in your dreams. You may make bad decisions in your dreams. You may do horrible things in your dreams. I can't really think of a dream off the top of my head where I did something horrible. Kill people, sure. Yeah, I've killed people in my dreams. But in the dreams, those killings were justified. I was like fighting an enemy. I was stopping a bad guy in my dreams. I'm trying to think of a dream where I was actively making bad, not even bad, but evil decisions. I can't think of one. Well, the terrorist who I killed, his family may disagree, but are you responsible for what you do in your dreams? That actually opens up a big bag of worms. Which is a bigger mess than just a can of worms. Because then, I could go, well, I haven't really done anything evil in my dreams. So, yeah, sure, what you do in your dreams is reality, but then someone else could be really struggling with having some dark dreams. And they're like, dude, why do I keep sleeping with my mom in my dreams? Oh, well, I know how I'm going to calm down. I'm going to listen to an episode of Dead Rabbit Radio. That always makes me feel good. And then you hear me go, oh, yeah, no, that's who you really are. You'd be like, what? Oh, man, you look at the calendar, Mother's Day's coming up, you're like, oh, no, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? I know what I'll do. A nap. A nap will surely put my mind at ease. I don't know. That's an interesting question. Are you responsible for what you do in your dreams? Because in a sense, it is your personality in the dream. Here's the thing. I'm saying, like, let's say you have a dream where you cause a huge car accident. You don't have to wake up and turn yourself into the police. But what I'm saying is, does the dream you make decisions so similar to the real you that the real you that the real you could suffer the consequence of it? Now, in this case, again, like, let's say you had a dream about I was going to bring the mother thing up again. We'll leave that one to the side. But let's say you have a dream about, causing a car accident. Someone dies in the dream. But then you wake up and they're alive in the real world. You know that it was just a dream. You totally get that. But should you, morally feel sorry for that? I'd say no, because it's just a dream, and dreams are just dreams. But in this case with Lewis, if he had said, yes, sure, I accept your offer, to this voice, would his soul then have paid the price? Would he have started to see diabolical actions in his daily life because he has rejected Christ and given dominion to this entity? See, I would argue no. I would say no. I would say that while the person in your dreams is you, or a shard of you, a piece of you, you wouldn't pay the price for what you do in your dreams. So, for example, if you went to your mom's house, so I'm going to keep thinking of that stupid mom example. I don't even know why I went there. I'm trying to keep a straight face because I still have more stuff to talk about, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to get through it. My point is that no, I don't think you would be responsible for it. But this is a subject because really dreams, I don't really research a lot. Again, I'll research it when it crosses over to the real world. The reason why this really popped into my head was the lighting change. But the bigger question is, would you be responsible for what he did in the dream? Would he be responsible for what he did in the dream? Because in the real world, yes, if you reject your religion and you accept in its place an evil religion, you are then held to the precepts of that evil religion. You're making a decision. Same thing as if you quit your job and got another job. You can't go, well, boss, I just did that in the dream. I gave you a 2 weeks notice in the dream. But in the real world, I still want to work here. The other company shut down. You're like, oh, that was all dream stuff. Luckily, you work in a mattress center, so they'll buy that excuse this time. Would you be responsible for that? That's a question already. I would think no. I would think at the end of the day, if you have horrible dreams doing horrible things to good people, you're not morally responsible for that, and you shouldn't feel bad about it. But you may want to go, why did I have that dream? Like a one-off dream where you're doing something insane, whatever. But if you keep having the same dream over and over again, and it's pretty, for lack of a better term, diabolical, you might want to go, I wonder what could be causing this. Let me go sit on my throne of human skulls and try to figure out why I keep having these blood-soaked nightmares. You might want to figure that out. But then we got to wrap this up. A very, very interesting question we don't have a ton of time to talk about is, what if the light never changed back to the cool white? I assume that it did, because if it was forever and ever then on the reddish glow, he actually does state, this night it was a warm orange. So he does state it, so it doesn't keep going on. So then I guess I really don't. I was going to say, it's possible that if the light was always orange from then on out, that he actually shifted into an alternate reality during that night. And possibly even an alternate reality where Christianity isn't real. An alternate reality where Christianity is a lie, and he's now in this world where God doesn't exist. And the light is always glowing red or orange. Because that would explain why you're like, wow, Jason, you went from, I don't like talking about dreams, to a man came to a reality where there is no God. I was just saying, like, if the light never was again a cool white, if it was always a dull orange or an orangish glow after that, I would think that would be a permanent change. That would be something that you would have to say, this is an alternate reality. This is a very localized Mandela effect. I am not in the same world that I lived in when I went to bed. But that's not what happened. That's not what happened. It just changed for one night. So I do think it might have been that entity in the bathroom. Or who knows, right? I mean, really, who knows with a lot of this stuff? Like I say all the time on the show, we don't know. I feel bad that this guy had this experience, the fact that it threw him into the deepest pit of despair that he's ever had. And I'll be honest, he probably still struggles with his faith. The fact that he's posting this on, the X board, who knows how long ago this happened. It could have happened a couple weeks ago. It could have happened years ago. But it's bugging him. It's this creepy experience that he had that he's still trying to rectify. For whatever reason, 1,000 scholars could have talked to Lewis. He could have watched 100 YouTube documentaries. He could have read 1,000 books on the subject. He could have attended lectures all around the world about Christianity and whether or not it's real. And it would have never affected him as much as this voice. This voice from the bottom bunk. And it probably will always leave a mark. It probably always will have him wondering whether or not it was telling the truth. DeadRabbitRadio@gmail.com is going to be our email address. You can also hit us up at Facebook.com/DeadRabbitRadio. TikTok is @DeadRabbitRadio. Dead Rabbit Radio is the daily paranormal conspiracy and true crime podcast. You don't have to listen to it every day.